Look at your weaknesses and try to find people on advisory board or board of directors that close out those weaknesses, because you cannot be the best salesperson around, you cannot be the best operator, you cannot be the best finance person.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through a product lens on some of the exceptional founders we have as part of the LA community in an unedited, one-take organic conversation. With us today is Andrey Kudievskiy. Thanks so much for coming down, Andrey.
Thank you so much, Ethan, for inviting me, and you did such an amazing job pronouncing my very complicated last name, so kudos to you.
And thank you for being one of our sponsors, so really genuinely appreciate that, Andrey. Thank you.
That's great to be here.
It's going to be a great conversation. I'm excited for this one. But first, a word from our sponsors, Distillery. Hey, Founders in LA listeners, Distillery, which is headquartered right here in Los Angeles, specializes in software development and staff augmentation and has supported the LA startup community since 2012. Trusted by local favorites like Thrive Market, Tala, and TrueCar, Distillery connects you with skilled developers who seamlessly integrate into your team to help move projects forward or create teams to build products with you. Whether short-term or long-term support is needed, Distillery offers flexible solutions tailored to fit specific to your needs. Visit www.distillery.com to learn more about how Distillery can support your growth. That's www.distillery.com. We're also brought to you by Unita. Unita is the co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, Unita is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With Unita, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, this podcast studio, plus standard 3D printers and 24/7 access at any of their locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their event spaces to nonprofits, and celebrate art, music, and culture. Join Unita Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at www.unita.club. That's www.unita.club. Our guest today is Andrey Kudievskiy. He's the founder and CEO of Distillery. And Andrey, could you just give us a 30-second description of Distillery?
Absolutely. Well, this is what my job is about. Give a pitch, give a sales pitch, give a understanding for other people what Distillery is. So in 30 seconds, Distillery is AI-enabled software development company. We develop software for other businesses, not just here in Los Angeles, in Southern California in general, but also across the United States. We don't really put a focus in one of the states. It just historically, we got to be known here in LA by providing our engineers to other businesses who are either growing or just want to do something that is non-standard for them, and we have the skill sets just due to the sheer number of engineers, hundreds of developers that we have. So that's where we come in. If you need something to be done fast in an efficient way and you don't want to hire for this, this is where Distillery comes.
That's amazing. And full disclosure to Founders in LA listeners, I'm a fan of Distillery and such that I actually joined up with the company a couple of months ago.
We got lucky.
Yeah, well, me too. I mean, I appreciate all that you guys have, all we have done for the LA community. Can you tell us about, how did you get started? And so Distillery helps companies build their software. So it's kind of like the passion lies in, building things, I guess, for others. But how did that become your life's work? Like, how did you decide to dedicate your life to this? Not everyone, you probably didn't grow up as a kid thinking, hey, I'm going to start a software development company. So how did software development become your life in this way?
That's such a loaded question. So let me start from the beginning. You asked about, I didn't grow up thinking that I will be building software. I'm going to object this because I always have been a fan of technology. And when my dad, back in the days, and that was, I lived in USSR, the country that no longer exists, when he bought a first computer that was a Pentium 287 or something like this, where you play Prince of Persia, and my mind was immediately occupied by, well, you press the button and the character on the screen just goes somewhere, goes left, goes right. I actually started learning BASIC, then Pascal. Those are old languages. And as a matter of fact, I grew up seeing myself in the software development business. But I also grew up being an entrepreneur, seeing my dad's example. He was a fisherman, but ultimately he was selling fishing supplies to other people. So till that point, I still know how to get, how to find out what the hooks are, which line you need, which rods you need, and such. So I had an example in front of me as my dad, and then also a passion for technology. These things combined together was a good starting point to ignite my passion of how can I have my own company and make money by doing this, and that relates to technology.
Wow, there's a couple threads there I'd love to pull on. So one is the idea of growing up in the USSR. You played Prince of Persia. That was available.
Yes, it was. I don't know why, but somehow it was available for us.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a fun fact I didn't know before. That's amazing. And then interesting to hear the sales background. And a common thread that has come up on this podcast before with early stage founders is that they find themselves in a sales position, a sales role, often sooner than they expect. Oftentimes someone has an idea, they think they can do something better. Oftentimes there's they have some technical capabilities or, a product background, the ability to communicate with folks. But oftentimes sales isn't part of that formula and that DNA. It sounds like for you, it was from the get-go.
It was. As early as I was 8 years old, I was standing in a local market and I was selling fishing supplies to other people. And sometimes, honestly, it was a little uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, because you don't really know. You cannot, as a young boy, I didn't know how to negotiate. Imagine someone of my current age coming to 8 years old boy and just like, I want to buy something from you. And here is 50% less money, but you give me the same. What do you tell to this person? You don't tell them to go away. You start to negotiate a little bit, saying, well, I can give you 10% discount, but my dad will probably kill me. So, and this is how that went. Very uncomfortable in the beginning, a little bit more comfortable as the time progressed. And then by the age of 12, when I was in the middle school, it was my second, my second nature. You want to go to the market instead of father, and my dad will stay at home. It's like, fine, I will do this. And occasionally I would bring more money than he ever would. So call it, I was number one salesperson in our family. Several
amazing.
Days in a row.
I'm sure he's proud and also sometimes a little bit jealous, but also like, okay, well, yeah, Andrey, now you go to market. Got yourself a job, son. How did that translate into, you married the technology and this entrepreneurial spirit? Like, how did you get started in that? And then how did you find your first customers?
Yeah, another good question. So I saw the opportunity there was a price difference between what the good developers, really good engineers were at a time in Eastern Europe, how much they would make, versus how much they would potentially get paid if they would work in the United States for US clients. So this arbitrage that you can easily use to your advantage is what prompted me to start my own business. But it's not a novel business, meaning that it's not something that I invented by all means. I want to admit we work in a busy market. It just depends on how big of a moat you can dig around your company in order to be good and growing. So the starting point was, look, I know I grew up in a most part of Russia, and then there was a really good university, technology university. It's actually literally called Technology University of Thousands of Russia. And I got there through placing second in the Math Olympic Games. So I didn't win, but I also, I was on the podium.
Good enough, yeah.
And then there were other really good, smart people around me. So my first company, we actually started with 5 people. 3 of them were my classmates. And I can tell that those are one of the smartest individuals that I ever worked with. And if they would start working for a company in Russia, then they would probably make, 1/4 of what their real worth is. So for me, that was interesting. What if I pay them double, but I also sell our time at a premium on the US market? And at a time, I don't know if they still exist, probably they do. There was a company called Adesk. Now I believe they rebranded to Upwork. It's like a marketplace that connects US clients to other parts of the world, which means really good companies are looking for really good developers. and they know that they can get them for slightly less or at a, I would call them at a discount than they would otherwise get here in the United States. And it's a contractor model, meaning that you're not responsible for a lot of taxes, overhead and such. So this is how it all started. We engaged on this marketplace. At some point, I was running the second largest company there by the number of hours. That was pretty neat. But I quickly understood that in order to actually work with clients, because you always have this middleman in between you and the client, right, this marketplace. In order to actually reach good clients, I had to move. And I had to move to United States, where a majority of our clients were at this point, because I still believe, even post-pandemic, in the value of shaking hands, kissing babies, bringing the bottle of wine, and drinking this during the conversation over dinner. So I think I went too far into telling how a distillery evolved, but the way how we started is, look, they're really good engineers. They have been trained for 5 years in one of the hardest math and physics program in all Russia. And then there are really good companies who want to get those engineers and use their skills to their advantage.
And it sounds like one of the initial keys to success was leveraging a third-party marketplace, but then recognizing that to actually grow, you don't want to rely on a platform. And I think it's a valuable lesson that other founders, like as you're an early stage founder, you're just trying to find any way to be relevant. And sometimes you can just leverage the tools that are out there to get your start and then recognize how to take it to the next level. So when you took it to the next level, all right, so at this point you have some good developers, you found yourself a business model that works, but you're saying, in order to scale to the way I want to, I can't just rely on this, this platform to do the work for me. How did you take it to that next level? And I guess that would be a pivot, in how we're describing an early stage world, where you're just saying at first just create some business that provides revenue. Now to scale, I need to make changes and go in another direction.
Yeah, I think you said it, Ethan, already. Test the business model, make sure that it works, and then take it to the next level. So taking this to the next level, and again, I will say this, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, I admit it. Some of our clients actually recommended me, suggested, hey, Andrey, if you want to be successful, you can keep working on this platform, but you have to go and meet your clients in person. So I took it through several iterations. I actually first started flying to the United States, meeting clients in person, saying, look, I'm going to be here for a week. Why don't we get coffee, dinner, lunch, whatever works for you. I'm here just to say hi in person and build this connection. Then once this was tested as, hey, it actually helps us to expand the business and retain our clients, then the idea, I took it to the next level. We need to establish the residency here in the United States. And through several iterations, I think we can talk about this later, but I also realized that, all right, great. Now we have clients in the United States. How do we give them the best service? And this is how the idea of Latin American development centers came, because you cannot, there is a lot of things you can work through and change, but one thing that I found was unchangeable at a previous distillery model, there was a 10-hour difference between West Coast of the United States and Eastern Europe. That's you cannot possibly overcome because physics doesn't work this way. So we decided to establish our residence in Mexico and Argentina, because that's where the time difference does not exist, because it's the same or almost the same time zone. Mexico is almost perfectly aligned to the United States, and Argentina is working really well with East Coast, and there is few hours difference with West Coast.
Yeah, and I think that time difference really is kind of the shift that we've seen in kind of the outsourcing model, where the outsourcing model, you'd be far more well-versed in it than I am, but started in the 1990s, and India became, as it became a rising nation and more of a technological nation with a good price point, it became, king. And then in the late 1990s, early 2000s, Eastern Europe kind of started to take over. But in the last probably decade, a lot of growth has come in Latin America, and it seems like there's a number of reasons why. One is due to America's involvement in this hemisphere and trying to keep it the cultural affinity there. I think that actually translates really well these days. But that time zone, and that's something that product managers, engineering designers, people in communities I've worked with, it's a challenge, especially for long term, right? So if you have a short-term project and it's like, hey, we just need to power through it, it's 1 month, that's great. But like if that's your model and there's the night times and the early mornings, I mean that Latin American talent is helpful for that. How did you make that decision? I guess that's in terms of like finding a company, like how did you make a decision like Mexico and Argentina, or where did that come from?
I think I'm telling the same story all over again about someone telling me this. Actually, our board of advisors and one of the smartest person whom I consider to be my friend and mentor through the years, he was on our advisory board before we had a board of directors. He just told me, Andrey, there are 3 things that makes your company valuable. Number 1 is you need to ensure quality. Before you step over the quality component, nothing else happens, meaning that you have to have really good level of talent of software developers. Ensure this, you have it. Great. Check mark number 1. Number 2, cost component. Also, just because we operate in Latin America, it's by nature, those are developing country. They're slightly less advanced in terms of the cost of the talent. So we have this component solved. Price. The last thing you don't have or you didn't have, now we do, is make sure that those developers, they work as if they would be sitting right next to your clients. It's like, okay, how do they do that? And this is how Mexico and Argentina came into play, because especially after pandemic, post-pandemic world just a little bit crazy, but you may not feel the difference between engineer sitting in Mexico, in Argentina, in Peru, or engineer sitting in Texas. That there is no difference except for slight accent, which I do have as well. But these 3 components, and someone else just telling me very, very specifically pointing out, those are things that you need to solve to make it easier for clients to work with you. How do you solve them? What do you have and what do you need to solve for? And the last component that I didn't have was the time zone. So this is how Mexico and Argentina came into play. But now the question you didn't ask, why 2 countries at once? Because usually companies go to one or another. We decided to not put all the eggs in the same basket. And in addition to that, we had a client in Mexico already who was running some operations. So for us, that was a no-brainer. And Argentina, across entire Latam, especially South Latam region, they have the highest English literacy level. Really good, exceptional universities where you can grab the talent from. And as you know, we run one of the biggest conferences, Distillery Tech Nights there, so to keep our pipelines of candidates going. So this is a country that I believe strongly is on the rise, and a lot more people will start looking a little bit down south, skipping Mexico and going to Argentina. So that's why 2 countries.
Wow, yeah, and I mean Latin America, it's certainly become more of a technological hotspot. I know that Google and I think Amazon as well as Netflix are creating development centers throughout Latin America. So there's definitely recognition that the talent is there, and then there's more talent being created because those jobs are being created down there. I want to touch upon the importance of a good board, because I think that's coming up a couple times. So, for some people who are building, how important is it to pick those advisors on the board, and how helpful have those folks been in helping guide the successes, or help you kind of point you in some directions and make suggestions and help provide guidance throughout the successes that you're getting?
I'll give you an answer in 1 word and then expand on it. It's crucial. Actually 3 words, but crucial is the one. One thing that I regret most about while building our company is to not doing this earlier. Number 1, I was thinking that I'm smart, and this lack of self-reflection, being almost cocky at times, like, oh, I know better, I know everything. It's like, no, you don't. It took me some time to figure out that look at your weaknesses and try to find people on advisory board or board of directors that close out those weaknesses, because you cannot be the best salesperson around, you cannot be the best operator, you cannot be the best finance person. And this is how I started to go. It's like, you're 10 times better than me and you work in a company that I want to become. Can I entice you to join Distillery and be on our board? And a lot of people said no. So for me, that was a challenge also to get people join the company, because as a service business, again, we're not a startup. We're not growing 10 times a year. That's not possible or very rare for the services business. So for people who are used to work on the board of startups, we were not that lucrative. But you explain the value, you explain that this is why I chose you. This is what our company, and becoming vulnerable, saying, I know that I need your help, and I know that I'm lacking here in this discipline. Would you join and help me to build a better company? So that's the longer answer of, I think that this is crucial. I regret of not doing advisory board or creating the fiduciary board of directors sooner. And if I'm to give one advice from this conversation, like, go and start building it, because it also takes time, right? It's not necessarily that you go and hire someone for your board tomorrow. It will take a village to find the right people.
And what sounds like one of the things I think I took away there is, don't be afraid to go in industry. Don't be afraid to look for an advisor from some company at a level in your same industry that you want to get to, which makes sense when you're sitting on the outside. But when you're in the inside, you probably wouldn't think that, oh man, why would they join me here? I would never think to ask them, or I'd be afraid to ask them. But it sounds like that's actually pretty helpful.
Correct. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Andrey. This has been a terrific conversation. We like to ground it in LA, although I think Distillery does a pretty good job of supporting the LA community in a lot of ways. But grounding it here, we like to ask our guests, what's your most LA thing, your most LA moment? It could be tech related, doesn't have to be.
Okay. Well, my most LA moment is actually tech and personal related.
All
and
right.
One of the reasons surprises is how small LA tech community is. Meaning that we live in a humongous city, but there are some groups that I'm part of on Slack, and there is a group of CTOs, group of some founders. So here's my story. I was trying to place a bet on a house, an offer, sending the offer, working with my agent. Obviously, I don't know the buyer, we never met, and the offer comes back with some modifications. It did got rejected, so let me put it first out. But then I see the name on this offer, and this is the CTO of a company that I know of. We're on the same Slack group. We're connected on LinkedIn. It's like, how small does our LA tech community should be for me to try to buy a house from someone whom I personally know, but not knowing that this is the person selling the house? So that's just one revelation. But the second one is from the perspective of the person who lives in South Bay, but used to live in different parts of the city. Mm-hmm. What I lately started to realize that while LA is big, people say you have to have a car, etc. It's a combination of several, not almost independent, but fairly independent cities where if you work in your community, if you work remotely, for example, at some point you might not need a car, the coffee shop owner, where to go to work remotely if you want to leave your house, etc. So this like multi-central and almost multicultural combination of cities that LA, like big LA, is comprising, that's what didn't really occur to me up until a few years later when I was moving from West Side to South Bay and just seeing how different they are. They are worlds apart. So that's another LA moment. But again, LA tech community, while small, it's super mighty. We have trillion-dollar companies. We have successful IPOs. We have really, really solid networking groups here in LA that are technology-oriented. And I love it. I wouldn't live anywhere else.
And that's a terrific note. We live in a wonderful place. It's not just the weather, but the LA tech scene is here and continues to grow. I know there's been, it's been called Silicon Beach for a decade now, but it seems like it's now really starting to hit on fire on all cylinders in a number of different industries. So thank you so much again, Andrey, for sharing with us. Really appreciate you coming down here and a lot of good takeaways for a lot of folks here. So thank you so much on that. And I was thinking actually the coffee shop thing, if you're in Los Angeles and you're like, oh, you work from home and you can go to your local coffee shop, I think that would resonate with people in like South Bay, Venice, Santa Monica, Echo Park, like West Hollywood. Like anyone who's listening from those different places would be like thinking that's me, because that definitely sums up the city in so many ways. So thank you again so much, Andrey. We've been talking with Andrey Kudievskiy. He's the CEO of Distillery.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you again to our sponsors, Distillery, so available at distillery.com, and Unida at unida.club. Thank you again for listening to us. And if you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button and visit our sponsors. Thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you next time on Founders in LA.